Hi, I'm Chelsea, 34 years old, and today I'm standing in the corner office of my downtown building overlooking the city I once felt too small to claim. 5 years ago, I was just a hard-working woman who married into wealth until the day my husband's cruel words became my unexpected salvation. When Garrett told me I'd never match his status, he unknowingly lit a fire that would eventually outshine his own carefully curated existence. Before I share how his dismissal became my greatest motivation, where are you watching from today? If you've ever been underestimated, hit that subscribe button. I promise what comes next will be worth it. I grew up in Edmonds, a modest suburb outside Seattle, where my father worked as a high school math teacher and my mother ran a small bookstore. Our three-bedroom ranch-style home wasn't fancy, but it was filled with books, laughter, and constant discussions about ideas rather than possessions. My parents emphasized education and work ethic over designer labels or vacation homes. Build something that lasts, Chelsea, my dad would say, because things are just things, but who you are and what you create, that's your real legacy. This mindset shaped me through my childhood and teenage years. I wasn't the richest kid, but I was driven. I worked after-school jobs first at my mum's bookstore, then as a barista saving every dollar toward college. My weekends weren't spent at the mall, but volunteering at community events or studying for advanced placement exams. By senior year, I'd earned enough scholarships to attend Northwestern University with minimal loans. College in Chicago was my first real taste of independence. I majored in business marketing with a minor in digital communications fields that fascinated me with their blend of creativity and strategy. Between classes, I worked part-time at the university's alumni relations office and later interned at a mid-sized marketing agency downtown. My schedule was packed from dawn until midnight, but I thrived on the hustle and the feeling of building something from nothing. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Horizon Marketing, a respected firm in Chicago's business district. My starting salary barely covered my tiny studio apartment and student loan payments, but I attacked each project with enthusiasm that didn't go unnoticed. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted twice, moving from assistant account manager to leading my own small team. It was during my 3rd year at Horizon that I first met Garrett Westfield. I was presenting our new digital campaign strategy at the Midwest Marketing Conference, my first major speaking engagement. Standing at the podium, I noticed him immediately, tall, immaculately dressed in what I would later learn was a bespoke suit, watching me with intense interest from the 3rd row. His confident posture and the subtle way others seemed to acknowledge his presence told me he was someone important before I even knew his name. After my presentation, he approached me with a business card that simply read, Garrett Westfield, CEO, Westfield Industries. That was impressive, he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. Most presenters use digital marketing as buzzwords. You actually understand the analytics behind the strategy. I thanked him, trying to hide how flattered I felt. Westfield Industries was a major player in luxury retail and technology investments far beyond my current professional sphere. I'd like to hear more about your approach to emerging markets, he continued. Are you free for dinner tonight? That dinner at Alinea Chicago's most exclusive restaurant was the beginning of a whirlwind romance that seemed plucked from a movie. Garrett was 36 to my 29, established and confident in ways that both intimidated and attracted me. He sent flowers to my office, whisked me away on his private jet for weekend trips to Napa Valley and the Hamptons, and introduced me to a world of luxury I'd only glimpsed in magazines. Looking back, the warning signs were there from the start. The way he gently corrected my pronunciation of French wines, his raised eyebrow when I mentioned my family's camping trips as cherished childhood memories. the subtle frowns when I chose comfort over couture at casual outings. "You have such natural beauty and intelligence," he'd say, in a tone that managed to be both complimentary and condescending. "With the right polishing, you could truly shine in my world." But I was enchanted by his confident success and the doors he could open. When friends like my college roommate Amara expressed concerns, I dismissed them. "He's just sophisticated," I defended, "and he sees potential in me that even I don't see." 6 months into our relationship, Garrett proposed at the Four Seasons Resort in Bora Bora, presenting a 7-carat diamond ring that felt almost too heavy on my finger. "You've brought something fresh into my life," he said, kneeling before me on our private beach. "I want to bring you fully into my world." I said yes through tears of joy, believing I was stepping into not just a marriage, but an exciting new chapter where I could grow alongside a partner who valued and supported me. As we sipped champagne under the stars, I imagined our future together, equal partners, combining my creativity with his business acumen. My closest friends had mixed reactions. Amara, now running her own tech startup, voiced the strongest concerns. "Just don't lose yourself, Chelsea," she warned during my bachelorette weekend. "You're extraordinary on your own terms, not just as Garrett Westfield's wife." I assured her I knew what I was doing, but as our engagement party at the Chicago Yacht Club unfolded, I felt the first real flutter of unease. Watching Garrett move confidently among Chicago's elite while I struggled to remember the names and connections of his associates, I wondered momentarily if I was stepping into a role rather than a relationship. Still, as our wedding day approached, I pushed these thoughts aside. I was entering a world of privilege and opportunity most people only dreamed about. With Garrett by my side, I believed the doors opening before me would lead to happiness and fulfillment beyond anything I could achieve on my own. How wrong I was. Our wedding was a lavish affair at the historic Drake Hotel with over 300 guests, most of whom I'd never met. I'd imagined planning my wedding since childhood, but Garrett had clear ideas about projecting the right image. The 8-tiered cake, imported flowers, and custom champagne labels all reflected his vision more than mine. My parents looked uncomfortable amid the extravagance, though they smiled supportively whenever I caught their eyes. "Just remember who you are," my mother whispered while helping with my veil. "All this is beautiful, but it's the strength inside you that matters most." After a honeymoon touring private Mediterranean islands on his friend's yacht, we settled into married life in Garrett's penthouse, overlooking Lake Michigan. The 60-floor elevator ride to our home felt symbolic of how far I'd risen from my modest beginnings. The apartment was stunning, all floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture and museum-quality art, but it never quite felt like my space. When I suggested adding family photos or cozier elements, Garrett gently redirected. "The interior designer created a specific aesthetic," he explained. "Let's not disrupt the harmony." Initially, I was too captivated by my new life to notice how Garrett subtly controlled our environment. I continued working at Horizon Marketing, though Garrett frequently suggested I could quit whenever I felt ready. I loved my career and the sense of accomplishment it gave me, so I always deflected these suggestions. "We have more than enough money," he'd say, "and there are so many charity boards and social committees that would value your involvement." But I'd worked too hard to abandon my professional identity. Instead, I threw myself even more intensely into my work, earning another promotion to senior account director within our first year of marriage. This success, which should have been celebrated, became a point of tension. "I'm proud of you, of course," Garrett said after my promotion dinner, which he'd arrived late to. "But I worry about how your long hours affect our social obligations." These social obligations meant navigating Garrett's exclusive Circle charity galas, private club memberships, and dinner parties with Chicago's wealthiest families. At these events, I was constantly aware of being evaluated. The wives of Garrett's associates eyed my clothing and accessories, making subtle comments about designers and seasons that highlighted my outsider status. Oh, is that last year's Prada? One woman asked at a charity luncheon, her smile not reaching her eyes. How refreshingly sustainable of you. Garrett's parents, Eleanor and Richard Westfield, maintained a polite but chilly relationship with me. During monthly dinners at their Gold Coast mansion, Eleanor would reminisce about Garrett's ex-girlfriends, all from prominent families, while Richard questioned me about my middle-class perspective on current events, as though I were a curiosity to be studied. Chelsea comes from such humble beginnings. Eleanor once told a table of guests at their anniversary party, "We're all just amazed at how well she's adapted to our world." The comments stung, but Garrett merely sipped his whiskey, neither defending me nor acknowledging the insult. This pattern of silent complicity grew more frequent as our marriage progressed. His criticism of me became more direct. My table manners needed refinement, my conversational topics were too common, my accent occasionally slipped into what he called suburban patterns. "It's not that I'm embarrassed by you," he'd say after correcting me. "I'm just helping you navigate this world more successfully." Meanwhile, Garrett's own schedule grew increasingly mysterious. Business dinners extended past midnight. Weekend golf retreats with clients left no time for phone calls. He began keeping his phone face down and taking calls in another room. When I asked about his day, his answers became vague and abbreviated. I tried to ignore the signs, focusing instead on my own career advancement and building relationships with the few genuine people in our social circle. But the knot of suspicion in my stomach tightened when I noticed Garrett's frequent text notifications from someone saved as PW Investments. One evening while he showered, I did something I'd never imagined myself doing. I checked his phone. The messages from PW were clearly not business-related. "Miss you already. Last night was incredible, and when can you get away from her again?" When Garrett emerged from the bathroom, I confronted him with the phone in my trembling hand. His expression shifted from shock to anger to a cold, dismissive calm. "Business relationships are complicated," he said, taking the phone from me. "Penelope is an important client, and sometimes maintaining those relationships requires social finesse." "Social finesse," I echoed incredulously. "Is that what we're calling affairs now?" His laugh was sharp and humorless. "Don't be dramatic, Chelsea. You knew the world you were marrying into. There are different rules at this level." He walked out, leaving me with the devastating implication that infidelity was simply another luxury his wealth afforded him, and that I should have expected it. The morning after discovering Garrett's texts, I suggested marriage counselling over breakfast. His response was immediate and cutting. "Therapy is for people who can't solve their own problems," he said, not looking up from his financial news app. "Besides, there's nothing to fix. You're overreacting to a business relationship you don't understand." For the next several weeks, Garrett maintained an icy distance, coming home late, sleeping in the guest room, and speaking to me only when necessary. When I tried to initiate conversations about our relationship, he would check his watch or phone as if I were an appointment, running over time. Still, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage. I researched relationship books, tried to interest him in weekend getaways to reconnect, and even consulted a therapist privately to gain perspective. The therapist's questions haunted me. Does he respect you? Do you feel valued? Are you becoming your best self in this relationship? I couldn't honestly answer yes to any of these questions, but I wasn't ready to face what that meant. The breaking point came during a dinner party. Garrett insisted we host for his top executives and their spouses. I'd spent days planning the perfect menu and decor, hoping the successful evening might thaw the distance between us. Everything was going smoothly until the conversation turned to a marketing campaign that my firm had recently launched. "Actually," I said, engaging for the first time that evening, "the cross-platform approach they're using is innovative. We've implemented similar strategies for our financial sector clients with impressive results." Garrett's hand closed around my wrist under the table, his grip uncomfortably tight. Chelsea isn't involved in campaigns of that caliber, he interjected smoothly. She works with smaller regional clients. Darling, perhaps leave the shop talk to those of us handling the major accounts. The table fell silent. I felt heat rush to my face as I realized he'd deliberately diminished my professional accomplishments to elevate his own status. Looking around the table, I saw pitying glances from the women and amused smirks from the men. That night, after our guests departed, I remained silent as we cleaned up. Garrett seemed pleased with himself, completely unaware of how deeply he'd hurt me, or perhaps he was aware and simply didn't care. Our 5th wedding anniversary fell 2 weeks after the dinner party fiasco. Despite everything, I decided to make one final effort. I prepared Garrett's favourite meal, set the dining room with candles, and wore the dress he'd once said brought out the green in my eyes. He arrived home 3 hours late, smelling of expensive scotch and a perfume that wasn't mine. "What's all this?" he asked, loosening his tie and glancing dismissively at my efforts. "It's our anniversary," I said quietly. "I thought we could talk, really talk about where we go from here." He laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that cut through the candlelit room. "Where we go? Chelsea. Let's be honest with ourselves for once. This marriage has been an experiment that didn't work out." An experiment. My voice trembled, despite my best efforts. Yes, I thought someone fresh, someone outside my usual circle might bring something interesting to my life, and you did for a while. But the novelty has worn off, and frankly, the constant effort of helping you fit into my world is exhausting. I stood frozen as he poured himself another drink, his words slicing through at the last of my illusions about our marriage. "From now on," he continued, swirling the amber liquid in his crystal glass, "I'll decide when we talk or spend time together. Stop chasing me with these pathetic dinners and anniversary celebrations. And honestly, Chelsea, I can't believe I ever lowered myself enough to marry you. You were never and will never be anywhere near my level." The words hung in the air between us, impossible to take back or unhear. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a realization that I'd spent years trying to earn the respect of someone incapable of genuine respect for anyone but himself. "I see," was all I could manage, my voice, surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. Garrett seemed almost disappointed by my calm response. Perhaps he'd expected tears, or pleading something to further feed his sense of superiority. Instead, I silently began clearing the untouched dinner, wrapping up food that would never be eaten, while he watched with narrowed eyes. "That's it, no drama?" he asked, following me to the kitchen. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time saw not the powerful, charming man I'd fallen for, but someone small and insecure beneath his expensive veneer. "What would be the point?" I asked, suddenly exhausted by the performance our marriage had become. He left me alone in the kitchen, the sound of the bedroom door slamming, punctuating the end of the conversation, and though I didn't know it yet, the beginning of my freedom. That night, I lay awake on the living room sofa, replaying every moment of our relationship through the harsh, new lens of reality. By morning, I had made a decision that would change the course of my life. I would stop fighting for Garrett's approval, stop trying to earn a place in a world that would never truly accept me. It was time to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Westfield. The morning after Garrett's devastating words, I moved my essential belongings into the guest bedroom without explanation. His eyes followed me suspiciously as I transferred my clothes and toiletries, but I offered no information about my intentions. "What's this little display supposed to accomplish?" he asked from the doorway, arms crossed over his chest. I continued organizing my things in silence, not giving him the satisfaction of a response. Something in my calm determination seemed to unsettle him more than any argument could have. Over the next few days, I implemented what therapists call the grey rock method, becoming as emotionally unavailable to Garrett as possible. I answered direct questions with minimal words, avoided eye contact, and stopped reacting to his provocations. I didn't cry, argue, or attempt to discuss our relationship. I simply existed alongside him like a piece of furniture he'd grown accustomed to overlooking. Initially, Garrett seemed smug about what he perceived as his victory in our power struggle. He strutted around our penthouse with renewed confidence, making pointed comments about upcoming social events I wouldn't need to worry about attending, and business trips where he could finally relax without obligations. I met each barb with the same neutral expression and continued about my business. I left for work earlier, stayed later, and when home, immersed myself in books or work projects at the small desk I'd set up in the guest room. The first signs of his confusion appeared around day 4 when he deliberately played music I hated during dinner, watching for a reaction that never came. "Are you planning to maintain this childish silent treatment indefinitely?" he finally demanded on day 6, cornering me in the kitchen. I looked at him with the detached interest one might show a moderately interesting museum exhibit. "I'm not being silent. I'm simply honoring your wish to control when and how we interact. As you said, you'll decide when we talk or spend time together. I'm respecting your boundaries." His face flushed with anger at having his own words reflected back to him, but I turned and left the room before he could respond. While maintaining my emotional distance at home, I was anything but passive in rebuilding my life. During lunch breaks at work, I met with Diana Reyes, a divorce attorney known for her skilled handling of high-conflict cases involving wealthy spouses. Her office, deliberately located away from the financial district to avoid Garrett's associates, became my safe space for planning. "Document everything," Diana advised during our first meeting. "Bank accounts, assets, evidence of infidelity, emotional abuse, anything that might be relevant. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but these details matter for settlement negotiations." I began systematically gathering information, photographing financial statements that arrived in the mail, taking screenshots of Garrett's calendar when he left his laptop open, recording dates, and details of his harmful comments in a password-protected document. I discovered offshore accounts I'd never known about and property holdings in 3 countries under shell company names. The most difficult evidence to collect pertained to his affairs, but his growing frustration with my emotional withdrawal made him careless. He left receipts for hotel rooms in his suit pockets and stopped deleting compromising texts. One evening, he took a call from Penelope in the living room, speaking intimately, while I sat silently nearby, recording the conversation on my phone. Parallel to my evidence gathering, I took practical steps to secure my independence. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, had important mail redirected to a PO box, and gradually moved sentimental items and important documents to a small storage unit I rented under my maiden name. During this time, I reached out to my old college friend, Amara Jang, now the successful founder and CEO of Innovate Tech, a rising star in the digital analytics sector. We met at an out-of-the-way coffee shop where Garrett's associates wouldn't spot us. "I've been waiting for this call," Amara said after listening to my situation. "Not because I wanted your marriage to fail, but because I've always believed in what you could accomplish if you stepped out from his shadow. I confessed my fears about starting over at 34, with potentially nothing if Garrett's legal team outmaneuvered me." Amara's response changed everything. "I'm expanding Innovate Tech's marketing division," she said, stirring her latte. "We need someone with your experience in both traditional and digital strategies. The position would include equity options and a salary that would make you completely independent, regardless of how the divorce settlement goes." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of genuine hope. We spent the next 2 hours outlining a business plan for a specialized marketing division focused on tech startups, combining my marketing expertise with her industry connections. By the time we parted, I had not just an exit strategy from my marriage, but a vision for my professional future. Back at the penthouse, I maintained my emotional distance while working late into the night on proposal documents and transition plans for my current clients. Garrett's confusion evolved into irritation as his attempts to provoke me continued to fail. He tried jealousy, mentioning attractive colleagues, nostalgia leaving our wedding album open on the coffee table, and finally anger slamming doors and raising his voice over trivial matters. "What exactly do you think you're accomplishing with this?" he demanded on day 12, blocking my path to the guest room. "If you think ignoring me will make me crawl back, begging for your attention, you're delusional." I looked at him with the same detached calm I'd maintained for nearly 2 weeks. "I'm not trying to accomplish anything with you, Garrett. I'm simply accepting the reality of our situation." His face contorted with frustration at my composed response. "This isn't the end of this conversation," he threatened, as he finally stepped aside. "There is no conversation," I replied quietly, closing the door behind me. By the end of the second week, the dynamic between us had shifted dramatically. Garrett, who had thrived on controlling my emotional responses, found himself increasingly agitated by his inability to provoke me. I, meanwhile, had grown stronger and more certain of my path with each day of emotional freedom. The scales had begun to tip, though Garrett hadn't yet realized it. On day 15 of our silent standoff, I was leading a presentation for potential new clients at Horizon Marketing's glass-walled conference room. My team had spent weeks preparing for this pitch to Ecosphere Innovations, an emerging sustainable technology company that would be our biggest account win of the year. The stakes were high. Landing this client would likely secure my promotion to executive director, a position that had been my goal since joining the firm. Just as I was explaining our proposed digital strategy, I noticed a commotion at the reception desk. Through the glass walls, I could see Garrett arguing with our receptionist, his normally composed demeanour replaced by obvious agitation. The receptionist's eyes darted toward our meeting room with an apologetic expression as Garrett pushed past her. Maintaining my professional smile, I continued my presentation while signalling to my assistant Tyler to intercept Garrett. My heart pounded as I watched their brief, tense exchange, but I forced myself to focus on the potential clients watching me. As you can see from these engagement metrics, our approach has consistently delivered a 30% higher conversion rate than industry standards, I said, advancing to the next slide as if nothing were happening. Inside, I was calculating exactly how to handle the impending confrontation without destroying my professional reputation. Tyler couldn't detain Garrett for long. Within minutes, the conference room door burst open and my husband strode in his bespoke suit and commanding presence, drawing all eyes immediately. "I apologize for the interruption," I said smoothly to the clients. "This is an unexpected visit. Could we take a brief 5-minute break? There are refreshments in the lounge next door, and my team can answer any immediate questions." As the clients filed out with curious glances, my colleague Jada whispered, "Need backup." I shook my head slightly. "Just keep them engaged for a few minutes." Once alone with Garrett, I closed the door and turned to face him, maintaining the calm demeanour I'd perfected over the past 2 weeks. He looked both angry and slightly dishevelled, his tie askew, and hair not quite perfectly combed, so unlike his usual impeccable appearance. "What are you doing here, Garrett?" I asked, keeping my voice level and professional. "Enough of this ridiculous game, Chelsea," he hissed, his voice low but intense. 2 weeks of silence moving into the guest room. "Is this how you think adults handle marital disagreements?" I crossed my arms and leaned against the conference table. "I'm in the middle of the most important client presentation of my career. Whatever this is, it could have waited until I got home." "Clearly it couldn't, since you've made yourself essentially unavailable," he snapped. "You leave before I wake up, come home after I'm asleep, and when you are home, you've turned into a walking statue." "And why would that bother you?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "You made it very clear that I'm beneath your level and that you'd decide when we would interact. I'm simply respecting your wishes." His face flushed with anger. "That's not what I—" He stopped himself, visibly struggling to regain control. "Look, this has gone on long enough. I came here to tell you that I expect you home for dinner tonight. We have the Hendersons' charity gala tomorrow, and we need to present a united front." The absurdity of his demand that after decimating our marriage I should play the dutiful wife for his social convenience finally broke through my carefully constructed composure. A small, unexpected laugh escaped me. "You can't be serious," I said, shaking my head. "I'm completely serious," he insisted. "You're my wife, and I need you to start acting like it again. This childish rebellion stops now." Before I could respond, the conference room door opened and Amanda Butler, my direct supervisor and Horizon's executive VP, stepped in. Her expression was polite but firm as she assessed the situation. "Everything all right in here, Chelsea?" she asked, though her eyes conveyed she knew it wasn't. "Mr. Westfield was just leaving," I said, straightening my posture. "We have some personal matters to discuss, but they can wait until after the ecosphere presentation." Garrett's jaw tightened at being dismissed, especially by another woman. "Actually, I need my wife to come with me now. Family emergency." Amanda looked between us, her years of handling difficult clients evident in her measured response. "I understand family emergencies, Mr. Westfield, but Chelsea is leading a critical presentation that could significantly impact her career and our agency. Perhaps you could brief her on the situation and she can join you immediately after the meeting concludes in about 40 minutes. Garrett wasn't accustomed to having his demands questioned. His eyes narrowed as he realized he was losing control of the situation. "Chelsea, you have a choice to make right now. Come home with me immediately or—" The unspoken threat hung in the air, but instead of fear, I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. This public ultimatum was the final push I needed to say what I'd been preparing for 2 weeks. "Or what, Garrett?" I asked, my voice steady. "Or you'll decide I'm even further beneath your level. Or you'll spend more nights with Penelope while pretending it's a business requirement. There is no or anymore." His eyes widened at my mention of Penelope. "You're making a scene," he said through gritted teeth, glancing at Amanda. "No, you made a scene by showing up at my workplace unannounced," I replied. "And to answer your ultimatum, no, I won't be coming home with you. In fact, I already packed what matters to me. There's no need for me to return to the penthouse at all." "What are you talking about?" he demanded, his composure cracking further. "I'm talking about divorce, Garrett. I've known about your affairs for months, all of them. I have documentation, hotel receipts, photographs, text messages, everything my attorney advised me to collect." The colour drained from his face as the implications sank in. With our prenuptial agreement, infidelity was one of the few grounds that could entitle me to a more equitable settlement. Amanda, sensing the gravity of the situation, stepped closer to me. "Chelsea, the clients are ready when you are. And Mr. Westfield, I'll have to ask you to leave our offices now, or I'll be forced to call security." Garrett looked between us, suddenly aware that he'd lost control not just of me but of the entire situation. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, his wealth and status weren't enough to get him what he wanted. "This isn't over," he said, adjusting his tie in a futile attempt to regain dignity. "It is for me," I replied simply. As he turned to leave, I called after him, "Oh, and Garrett, you were right about one thing. I'm not on your level, and thank God for that." After he left, Amanda squeezed my shoulder. "Take a moment if you need it. I can stall the clients." I shook my head, straightening my jacket and gathering my presentation materials. "No need. I've never been more ready to show what I can do." That afternoon, I delivered the most confident, compelling presentation of my career. As I walked the clients through our strategic approach, I felt pounds of invisible weight falling away with each slide. By the time they signed the initial agreement, I wasn't just winning a client, I was reclaiming my identity. When the meeting ended, Amanda offered me a ride to a hotel, sensing I might not want to return to the penthouse after the confrontation. As we drove away from the office building, I looked back once, mentally saying goodbye, not to Garrett, but to the version of myself that had accepted his diminishment for far too long. Checking into the hotel that evening, I felt both terrified and exhilarated by the enormity of what I'd done and what lay ahead. But for the first time in years, the future felt like an open road rather than a narrowing tunnel. The morning after the confrontation at my office, I woke up in my hotel room with an unexpected sense of peace. The weight of pretending in my marriage had been so constant that its absence felt almost disorienting, like putting down a heavy backpack I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. I'd taken the day off work to meet with Diana Reyes, my divorce attorney, to officially file the paperwork. Her downtown office was deliberately warm and inviting, with none of the intimidating leather and mahogany typical of high-powered law firms. Based on everything you've documented, we're in a strong position, Diana explained, reviewing my files of evidence. The prenuptial agreement does limit your claim to marital assets significantly, but the infidelity clause gives us substantial leverage. What kind of retaliation should I expect? I asked, remembering Garrett's final words at my office. Considerable, she answered honestly. Men like Garrett don't lose control gracefully. He'll likely start with intimidation, expensive lawyers' threats about your career attempts to freeze you out financially. When that doesn't work, he might try character assassination or gaslighting. She was right. By that afternoon, I received a call from my bank informing me that Garrett had attempted to remove me from our joint accounts. Fortunately, I'd already transferred my personal savings to my new account. By evening, his attorney, a notoriously aggressive divorce lawyer who specialized in protecting wealthy clients, had sent a settlement offer that would have left me with essentially nothing. He's testing how desperate you are, Diana said when I forwarded her the offer. This is just the opening move. The next day brought a different tactic. Garrett sent a massive bouquet of roses to my hotel room with a note reading simply, "Let's talk before the lawyers destroy what we have." Dinner tonight, I texted a single-word reply, "No." While Garrett cycled through strategies to regain control, I focused on building my future. The day after filing for divorce, I met with Amara to finalize the details of my new position at Innovate Tech. We decided I would start in a consulting capacity, immediately transitioning to full-time once my obligations at Horizon were complete. "I've reserved the corner office on the 20th floor, Amara told me over lunch. "Floor-to-ceiling windows, view of the lake. You'll see your old building, but from a completely new perspective." The symbolism wasn't lost on me. "It's perfect," I said, feeling genuine excitement despite the chaos of my personal life. The next few weeks unfolded in a blur of professional transitions and legal maneuvering. Garrett's legal team became increasingly aggressive as they realized I wouldn't be intimidated into accepting a minimal settlement. When threatening letters didn't work, they scheduled depositions designed to humiliate me, questioning everything from my spending habits to my professional qualifications. "They want to break your resolve," Diana explained after a particularly grueling session. "The fact that they're resorting to these tactics means they're worried." She was right to be confident. During discovery, we uncovered evidence that Garrett had been hiding significant assets that should have been declared as marital property. This revelation shifted the power dynamic in our negotiations dramatically. When Diana presented this evidence to Garrett's attorneys, along with the extensive documentation of his affairs, their tone changed almost overnight. "They're ready to talk real numbers," Diana told me, a satisfied gleam in her eye. The prenup may have been airtight, but infidelity combined with hidden assets gives the judge discretion that Garrett definitely doesn't want to risk. While the divorce proceedings continued, I threw myself into developing Innovate Tech's new marketing division. The work was challenging and reinvigorating, a perfect blend of my existing skills and new growth opportunities. Amara had assembled a team of bright, innovative professionals who respected my expertise without any of the condescension I'd grown accustomed to in Garrett's world. Our first major client opportunity came from an unexpected source, Ecosphere Innovations. The same client whose pitch meeting Garrett had interrupted had been impressed with my presentation, but ultimately chosen another agency. Now, their CEO reached out directly to me. "We've been disappointed with the preliminary work from the agency we selected," he explained during our meeting. Your approach showed a deeper understanding of our brand values and target audience. If you're still interested, we'd like to explore working with you at your new company. I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Garrett's attempt to sabotage my career had inadvertently led to my first major client at Innovate Tech. When we signed the contract the following week, Amara opened champagne for the entire team. To new beginnings, she toasted, and to Chelsea, who reminds us that sometimes the most powerful step we can take is walking away from what no longer serves us. 4 months after filing my divorce was finalized. The settlement wasn't what Garrett had initially offered, not even close. Between the evidence of his affairs and the hidden assets, I received a substantial one-time payment, plus ongoing interest in several business ventures we had invested in together. It wasn't the fortune Garrett commanded, but it was more than enough to establish my complete independence. On the day the papers were signed, Garrett requested a private word outside the attorney's offices. He looked thinner, the confident gleam in his eye somewhat diminished. "I underestimated you," he said, his tone a complex mixture of resentment and reluctant respect. "You did." I agreed simply, but more importantly, I underestimated myself. As I walked away, I realized that the settlement money, while helpful, wasn't what mattered most. The true victory was reclaiming my identity and discovering that I was capable of building something valuable entirely on my own terms. By the 6-month mark after our separation, Innovate Tech's marketing division had exceeded all projected goals. My team had grown from 3 to 15 people, and we'd secured contracts with clients Garrett's firm had been pursuing for years. When industry publications began featuring our innovative campaigns, I received an unexpected text from my ex-husband. "Saw the article in Adweek. Impressive work." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My success spoke for itself louder than any words could have. 3 years after the day Garrett told me I would never match his status, I stand at the window of my corner office watching the Chicago skyline transition from day to twilight. At 37, I'm now Executive Director of Innovate Tech's Marketing and Brand Strategy Division, overseeing a team of 45 talented professionals who have helped quadruple the company's client portfolio. The journey from that devastating night to where I stand today wasn't linear or easy, but each step led me further from the shadow of Garrett's world and deeper into creating my own. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I purchased a historic loft in Printers Row, a vibrant neighborhood filled with bookstores, coffee shops, and creative professionals. Unlike the sterile luxury of Garrett's penthouse, my home reflects my actual tastes, walls lined with books, comfortable furniture meant to be lived in, and art chosen for how it makes me feel rather than its investment value. More meaningful than the physical space are the relationships that fill it. I've cultivated a community of friends who know my story, but don't define me by it. Fellow entrepreneurs, artists, and independent thinkers who value authenticity over status. Every month I host a dinner for what we jokingly call the Phoenix Club, women rebuilding their lives after significant setbacks, whether professional, personal, or both. The most rewarding development has been establishing the Horizon Mentorship Program, which provides guidance, internships, and scholarships to young women from backgrounds similar to mine. Using a portion of my settlement money and leveraging Innovate Tech's resources, we've helped over 50 women pursue careers in marketing technology and business leadership. When someone tells you that you don't belong at their level, I often tell my mentees, remember that tables can always be flipped and the most interesting people build their own. This particular evening, I'm putting final touches on my keynote speech for tomorrow's Chicago Women in Business Awards, where Innovate Tech is being recognized for both innovation and workplace equity. As I review my notes, my assistant Maya knocks on my door. "The event coordinator for tomorrow's ceremony is on line 1, she says, And don't forget, you have dinner with the Singapore clients at 7. I thank her and take the call, confirming final details for my presentation. Just as I hang up, Maya reappears with an unusual expression, part surprise, part concern. "There's someone here to see you," she says hesitantly. Garrett Westfield. The name still triggers a momentary tightness in my chest, but it's no longer accompanied by the crushing anxiety it once was. Did he say what he wants? Just that it's important and won't take long. I consider for a moment. Send him in. When Garrett walks through my door, the contrast between the man before me and my memories is striking. He's still handsome and well-dressed, but there's a weariness to him that wasn't there before. The financial news had reported that Westfield Industries had suffered several significant setbacks after backing the wrong technology platform and losing key clients to more innovative competitors, including Innovate Tech. "Chelsea," he says with a nod that's almost deferential. "Thank you for seeing me." I gesture to the chair across from my desk. "What can I do for you, Garrett?" He sits glancing around my office, taking in the industry awards, the team photos, the wall of press features, highlighting our campaigns. "Impressive operation you've built here." "Thank you," I reply simply, waiting for him to get to the point. He clears his throat. "I'm here about the Fletcher account. I understand they're considering moving their business to your team. So this is a business call, not a personal one. Somehow, that makes it easier. We've submitted a proposal, I confirm, but I'm sure you understand I can't discuss the details." He nods, fingers tapping nervously on the arm of the chair, a gesture so unlike the confidently still Garrett I once knew. "The Fletcher account has been with Westfield for 15 years. Losing it would be significant." What he isn't saying is that Fletcher's departure would likely trigger an exodus of other long-term clients, potentially destabilizing Westfield Industries further. I can read the desperation beneath his composed expression. "Business evolves," I say, echoing words he once used when discussing his competitors' failures. "Clients go where they find the most value." His jaw tightens slightly. I thought perhaps given our history, we might discuss a collaborative approach, a joint venture that would benefit both our companies. I study him for a moment, recognizing the familiar strategy, attempting to leverage a personal connection for business advantage. 3 years ago, I might have been flattered by the offer, seeing it as validation. Today, I simply see it for what it is, a tactical move from a position of weakness. I appreciate the offer, I say carefully, but Innovate Tech's success comes from our independent approach and unique perspective. I don't think our business models would align well. Disappointment flashes across his face, quickly replaced by a forced smile. "Worth a try. You always were smarter than I gave you credit for." The backhanded compliment hangs in the air between us. In the silence that follows, I notice how our positions have completely reversed from that night in our penthouse. Now, I'm the one declining his proposals, gently but firmly closing doors. "How are you, Chelsea, really?" he asks suddenly, his tone shifting to something more genuine. "You look fulfilled." The unexpected question takes me by surprise. I answer honestly. Building something meaningful on my own terms, it's been challenging but deeply rewarding. He nods slowly. "I see that now." After a pause, he adds, "I sometimes wonder how things might have been different if I'd understood what I had when we were together." For a moment, I'm transported back to the woman who once desperately wanted to hear those words, who thought validation from Garrett would somehow complete her. But that woman is long gone, replaced by someone who no longer needs external approval to recognize her own worth. I don't spend much time on what ifs, I tell him. The past has its lessons, but my focus is forward. Garrett stands, recognizing the gentle dismissal. "Of course, I won't take more of your time." He reaches into his jacket pocket and hands me a business card. "If you ever reconsider the collaboration idea or just want to grab coffee sometime," I accept the card out of politeness, though we both know I won't be calling. "Take care of yourself, Garrett." At the door, he pauses and turns back. "You've created quite a life, Chelsea. It's beyond anything I imagined for you, beyond anything I've managed to maintain myself, if I'm being honest. The irony isn't lost on either of us that his dismissive prediction about my limitations had become the catalyst for me exceeding not just his expectations, but his achievements. It turns out, I say with a small smile, that the right level wasn't yours to define after all. After he leaves, I don't feel the triumph I might have expected from such a moment. Instead, there's a quiet satisfaction not in surpassing Garrett specifically, but in discovering how much more expansive my life could be once freed from the constraints of his world and his approval. I turn back to my keynote speech for tomorrow, adding a new opening line. The most profound gift we can give ourselves is the courage to walk away from spaces where we're told we don't belong, and instead create environments where everyone can thrive. The following morning, I deliver my speech to a packed ballroom of business leaders and emerging professionals. Looking out at the faces of women who have overcome their own versions of limitation and dismissal, I share not just my professional insights, but the personal journey that shaped them. True status, I tell them as I conclude, isn't measured by the exclusivity of your address or the designer of your clothes. It's measured by the lives you touch, the value you create, and the authenticity you bring to everything you do. Sometimes the most luxurious life isn't the one with the highest price tag. It's the one you design yourself on your own terms, aligned with your deepest values. The standing ovation that follows isn't just for me, but for everyone who has ever found the courage to walk away from diminishment and towards self-defined success. As I leave the stage, several young women approach me, eyes bright with recognition and possibility. "Your story gives me hope," one tells me. "I'm in a relationship where I'm constantly told I'm not enough. Hearing how you rebuilt your life makes me believe I could do it too." Her words remind me why sharing our stories matters. It's not about revenge or vindication, it's about illuminating paths for others who stand where we once stood, uncertain if stepping away from what diminishes them is worth the risk. Looking back at the 3 years since I left Garrett's penthouse, with nothing but a suitcase and determination, I realise the true luxury in my life isn't financial success or professional recognition. It's the freedom to define my own worth, to build connections based on mutual respect rather than utility, and to help others recognise their inherent value beyond anyone else's assessment. Have you ever had someone underestimate you only to find that their doubt became your greatest motivation? I'd love to hear your stories of transformation in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and reinvention. Remember, sometimes the greatest chapters of our lives begin with closing doors that were never truly open to us in the first place. Thank you for listening, and may you always know your true worth is never determined by someone else's limited vision of you.